Coming November 15th on the Whimsy Farm podcast, I spend an hour with Mark Dyken, an activist and musician living in the Sierra foothills in Northern California. The drummer for the band Clan Dyken, Mark and his brother Bear, who plays guitar and writes most of the band's music, has been visiting the Navajo Reservation in Arizona for a quarter of a century. Their story involves Peabody coal, forced relocation, resistance, relief efforts, and most importantly, the Dineh themselves.
So there are three land designations in this region: Navajo partitioned land, NPL, Hopi partitioned land, HPL, and joint use area, JUA. So the Navajo Dineh people who lived on what was their traditional land for a long time, but now found themselves on these new maps living on HPL, Hopi partitioned land, were required by law to leave their homes. And that's been the basis for this resistance since we got involved in the first trip that I made out there was in 1991, and we've been going back every year to support. I've been interested in looking at activism through the lens of what was done to the indigenous people of this land and how that speaks to the legacy of the way America treats people in general, and this whole idea that European colonialists came in here with an air of superiority and an incredible penchant for violence and a lust for this land. And I have long felt somewhere deep inside of me that we should have paid closer attention to what was here before. And if we had listened to what the people who knew how to live on this land were saying when we first got here, I think the entire world would be a different place. Let's face it, Carolyn, if there was ever someone who should have a reason to not trust you just for the way you look, you would think it would be indigenous Americans looking at descendants of European colonizers. But what I found is if I come there with humility and openness, I'm more than accepted. People want you to be there. People want that story told. And that's a big part of why we do this the way we do it, is the solidarity and the chance to let people on the outside world know that this is still going on. These grandmothers are out there making those sacred fires, saying the prayers, singing the songs, still speaking that language that grew up from that very place where they live. Can I be present enough, be in the moment enough to see the beauty before me, behind me, above me, below me? And that's part of that way of life. And that's why we call it the Beauty Way Tour. We did an album called Revive the Beauty Way. This concept of walking in beauty and living in true harmony with the world around us, that's what this is about. Here's why, to me, what has always been so impressive about these grandmothers especially is they didn't know anything and probably didn't care one bit about outside politics. If a massive amount of financing was put into erecting barbed wire fences to designate, here's Hopi partition land here, and you can't put your cattle here, you can't hunt over here, and this is joint use area, so you can do this here, and we're going to restrict the size of your herd and all of this stuff. And for them to say no, for them to go get their wire cutters and start cutting down barbed wire fences in the middle of the night, this is direct civil disobedience, but it remained nonviolent. And then to first go to their tribal councils, then go to their to corporate headquarters, they've been everywhere, United Nations, they've been all around the country and even sometimes internationally to speak about what's going on their land, which ties to indigenous issues all around the world. They were climate activists before anyone ever had a word for it. They absolutely knew that this was a vital organ. To them, this coal is like the liver of the earth. This was a vital organ that couldn't be removed from this being without great harm. And again, science has caught up to their understanding of things. whether it's, how we exist on an energetic level, like all the way down to our structure of the basic building blocks of the world, which are atoms. This is all understood in their way of life. To this, and again, I guess my message especially is to those of us of European descent. If we can look in our hearts and come to realize what our privilege has brought to us, if we could ever put out at a level of, say, pinch, I don't want to say pain, but you know what I mean? Like an effort, not just, writing a check is pretty easy for us, but what can we give that might come even close to balancing the enormous privilege that our line of descent has afforded us here in this country, and make some kind of gesture, gift, work, whatever it is, to balance that out.
Join me on November 15th for a powerful conversation with activist and musician Mark Dyken.
whimsyfarms.net